We run through our crowd. You know, our household's a max of about 350 here. So even on a relatively full night, you know, one pass through the audience, you're interacting with a bunch of people. We call them crowd runs. So in my crowd run, you know, try to get to as many people as we can. We try not to stay located in any one area too long, just so everyone gets the maximum Chippendales experience.
And do you enjoy that?
I love it.
Do you enjoy the touching?
I do enjoy the touching. But it's mostly because it's not so much the touching itself, it's I mean, people are having fun. You know, you see, yeah, again, it's cheeky, but you see the brightness in their eyes, and you see they're smiling, they're laughing, they're giggling. You walk away, they giggle with their friends. They it's more the joy that is created from it rather than the actual sensation itself.
Would you say it makes you feel empowered then, or it doesn't make you feel belittled?
But the big difference here is that, you know, I know what this job is. I willingly show up to work every day, so it's not a surprise. It's not getting, you know, catcalled on the street, maybe something unwanted. So it's not belittling to me because it's voluntary. You know what I mean? It's I willingly show up every day. I know what I'm getting in for. If I was uncomfortable, then it would, you know, behoove me to find other work that was more in line with my comfortability.
Have there been incidents where the fans have got a little too physical?
Yeah, it has happened. You know, that's the nails are usually if something happens, which again is very rare. But we have gotten, you know, girls, and it's usually out of excitement. You know, they're having fun. They, again, like hands on the chest, and they're getting excited, and you get a little claw mark. But it's usually not from a place of like malice or weird intent. It's just, you know, kind of, again, not knowing quite where the line is.
But you don't come off stage thinking that was really painful.
I mean, you know, a scratch is a scratch, but again, I know where I work. I understand that even though that's not really in our rules, that is in the scope of possibility, you know, and if you feel someone start to do it, again, you just instruct them, hey, no, like, it's not okay, you can touch, don't do that.
Do you see yourselves as having the same job as female strippers, strip dancers?
We have no tipping at our show, so there's no dollars, there's no interaction based on how much money you have that day or that moment. It's one of my favorite things about the show.
So the idea behind the no tipping is that nobody is paying for sex or sexual favors, or?
Well, and not even so much sexual favors, it's just you can't even influence, you know, attention. You know, that if we're going out, if someone is well off and well-to-do, they can't just, you know, I'm sure it would spread very quickly through the cast. Oh my God, this lady's loaded. She's throwing out 20s, she's throwing out hundreds. And we could gravitate there. Someone else that maybe like saved up their whole allowance for weeks or months and got this trip to Vegas and barely scraped by to see our show could get ignored.
The Me Too movement has raised awareness of the way women have been abused or objectified. Does the question also need to be asked about men, do you think, in these kind of roles? Well,
I mean, I think it's, in general, great to, I love what the Me Too movement is doing, and I love the amount of awareness it's created, including in myself. You know, I like theoretically knew some of my friends' stories, but watching them actually type them out on Facebook and actually hearing them, it just made it tangible to something I hadn't experienced. As far as it relates to our show, again, and kind of like I said earlier, I think it's a little different because we are voluntary participants. You know what I mean? This isn't, you know, you're not going about your day, you're not getting a coffee, or even thinking you're on a nice date and get forced into a corner, or you know, you're you know, theoretical or literal back against a wall, you know, trying to escape. This is somewhere I choose to work. You know, I choose to be employed here. So I think, you know, I think just, you know, participating in that way changes the dynamic. You know, I know that I'm going to be looked at just strictly for my muscles, but I've engaged in that agreement by working here.
Do you feel objectified?
No, because again, I'm participating, so I feel like I'm being admired for my physicality. You know what I mean? You know, objectification means someone's reducing you against your will, which it's not against my will. We're like, hey, I worked hard to have, you know, I did some push-ups, and I enjoy you enjoying it, and you're enjoying it, and this can be a wonderful symbiotic relationship, you know? That's where it's so great that if you're not okay with that, you can go get a different job. You know, you can work somewhere else where you're gonna feel comfortable, which is what's different from the Me Too thing. You know, if everyone, trying to crack into Hollywood has to go through Harvey Weinstein. That's a little bit of a tougher situation.
We've seen a move in the UK, the disappearance we hear of grid girls or walk-on girls, or the same in boxing. What is your sense? Is that a move in the right direction, or do you think that's a denial of
Yeah, it's complicated because, if, say, any one of those girls was, proud to do that, proud to be there, maybe proud of their body, enjoyed the money, thought it was easy, thought it was a fun job. If they were there 100% voluntarily, then it's hard to argue against it. With that said, though, things have been, clearly, as all these stories are coming out, things have been wrong for so long, that we might need to overcorrect for a while, before we find the middle ground that we all want to live at. So, just a basic premise of like taking away something that, looks on the surface, especially because females have been repressed for so long. I know there's a lot of guys with stories out there too, but as a whole, like the females have been pushed back or been objectified so many times and so often that, things that sort of personify that old guard might need to drop off for a second. So, like, socially, I kind of feel one way, but then towards individual rights, I feel another. It's tricky.